right. Welcome to another Digital Lunchbox. I'm Seth Vbrock, founder and CEO of O8, and I am joined with Tyler and Andy from the team. So with that, let's get started. We're going to talk about GA4, the next iteration of Google Analytics. So first off, how is GA4 different from the previous version, Universal Analytics?
Holy smokes, where to start?
Right.
So really, there are changes from how data is gathered, how it's presenting data, both on the math side, as well as the actual user interface, how it's gathering that data changes. All of these changes are really put in place because of the shifts in data privacy law and other things that that we'll dive into a little bit later on down the road. But the long and short of it is we're going to continue to see the data sets around attribution modeling erode away as cross-device, cross-platform tracking, which can be very invasive, is kind of buttoned down across several different constituencies, as well as several platforms. They're just moving forward with very user-centered, data privacy-centric models. Really places a heavy emphasis on event-driven data modeling here. So it's all about how users are interacting with your site. Things like bounce rate and stuff, which they still have their place, but those are largely seeing their top billing kind of fall away in GA4 in lieu of things that are really value driving KPIs and interactions on sites. So the focus is moving from what we call those vanity metrics into really those value driven KPIs that we try and align all of our clients to right from the start.
Yep.
In some ways, calling it GA4, it's tempting to just think of it as, oh, this is just like the next step up from the current universal analytics that we're all using. But it's really a very different product. I mean, when you look at the two side by side and you look at how GA4 approaches its measurement model, you realize that they have basically just taken the whole thing apart and rebuilt it from scratch. And you need to think of it as a completely brand new analytics platform, new reporting that it's as though, don't think of it as necessarily that Google's just doing this. It's almost like a different company came in and said, here's our version of analytics and it's better because of these reasons. And one of them being that it does not differentiate between what happens on a mobile device and what happens on a website, whereas Universal Analytics very much oriented towards page views. So something that happens, page view is sort of the foundation of Universal Analytics. Somebody loads a page and then a bunch of stuff happens. And if you want to track an event, such as a button click or a form submit or somebody playing a video, you had to go and tool that stuff into that. That was like its own separate category of thing. In GA4, that goes away because on a mobile device, there's no such thing as a page view, right? So everything becomes an event. That becomes the lowest common denominator. Page view is just another kind of event. So that's a fundamental shift in the way that it's measuring right from the start. And it requires you to do kind of one of these, readjust your brain here as you're thinking about how you're going to go forward with this.
Yeah, I imagine folks who are really familiar with GA will be able to make the transition fairly painlessly. But there will be a learning curve with this. It's not like, past where we went from, GA.js and that implementation to analytics.js and some of the minor retooling that happened there. This will be a much larger change, but I think, most folks will be able to make that switch fairly easily, provided, again, they're able to kind of change that orientation like Andy was talking about, away from page view centric and more seeing page view as just another way of interacting with a web or mobile property.
Yep. Sounds exciting. So with that, is there some way that GA4 will impact my marketing analytics? You already touched on it a bit, but Any further details on that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think it's safe to say that if you're already using GA, you care a great deal about what you're measuring. And if you're using it in anything other than just kind of like looking around at basic reports, you have got some notion of what you think is important to track, right? It's the old measure what you treasure. So if you've got that already set up in GA3, you're going to need to go back into GA4 and think about it again in a much more granular and detailed way, because Google has rather than just saying, okay, I've got an event I want to track, and Google, GA essentially asks you to track it as, oh, well, you can give it these sort of parameters like, well, you can give it a category, or you can give it a label, or you can give it an action, and those things help you bucket events in different ways in your reporting. GA4 says, well, let's expand that on that thinking here. There are actually events that we're automatically generating. There's a ton of them, and you don't have to do anything. They're just there. And if you go into Google to GA4 and you look at events in real time, or you look at their events reporting, you can see that. And we'll show you that. We've got the demo site loaded up, and we can show you what that looks like. And then, in addition to that, there are events that you might want to track up that are pretty standard, like signing up for something, right? Sign up for a newsletter, or you log into a site. Well, those are recommended events. They're not automatically logged because they're a little different the way each site does them, but the way that Google wants you to track them is fairly standardized and recommended. So that also helps. And then there's custom events beyond that, which is just anything you want it to be. And you've got like 500 different event types that you can put into the free version of GA. So there's a lot of thinking you have to do about what events do you want to track, which events are super important, which events by themselves will be considered conversions, et cetera. Obviously, things like e-commerce purchases and form signups and so forth, but it can be a very, very big and very detailed list. And the best way to think about this is to just look at what is being done already. Look at the demo store, for example, that Google provides. Their merchandise demo shop is great. It's actually a live site where people buy stuff. See how they've implemented that, and look at other implementations, watch videos, and so forth. There's plenty of time to work this out. Universal Analytics is not going anywhere. So think about it. Does impact your marketing, but the good news is plenty of time to think about how you want to implement it and what's important to you.
Right.
Yeah, the big thing here is if you switch or implement GA now, and run it in GA4 now and run it in parallel with Universal Analytics and your current implementation, you really should only see your marketing analytics improve. However, if you wait until you're forced to make this switch, when a lot of that attribution modeling data that I talked about, that's kind of been slowly going away, if that is gone, you're going to lose quite a bit of data. That's no fault of GA4, just, those privacy laws again and things are changing. The way that browsers are handling those types of cookies and that attribution modeling are changing. So GA4 itself should do nothing but improve the analytics and the metrics that you have in front of you, especially if you've been doing some of the things that Andy was just talking about, like identifying what's important to you and making sure you have those tracking things implemented properly. But if you're a little bit behind, you may see some stark differences here, and that's why it'll be really important for you to which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, get that GA4 property set up in parallel sooner rather than later, so you don't have a whole nice mess when you need it later on down the road.
That's great. Yeah, this sounds, really exciting and like a good step forward for all of us to take. But maybe you can give me some more visuals about what does this actually look like from the UI standpoint.
Sure. So let's just go there, right?
Yeah.
So here is, first of all, I'm looking at Google's merchandise store, which you can get if you just, there's links to it from Google where you can just go out and add this to your Google Analytics. So this is Google's merchandise store, and I'm just looking at their master view right now and this is Universal Analytics. So this is the home screen, and it's very familiar for people that know Google Analytics. You've got all the familiar reports. So let's flip over and do a side-by-side comparison with GA4. And so this is the same property, right? And by the way, property and no view. There's one of the big differences in UI so far is that GA4 does not yet have a concept of views, and maybe it will not really be using views in the same way that Universal Analytics uses it. So right now there is just a property view, and then you can see the down the side we still have this left, reporting tabs. This left nav bar with reporting tabs. But you can see that already things are quite a bit different in terms of what it shows you on the home screen. And then you can, and then, so the two things that you see at the top are basically just kind of an aggregate report that shows you users and engagement, gives you there's an insight panel, shows you information about where your users are coming from, top campaigns and so forth, geo report. So kind of a nice overview of everything that's going on. But to see what's going on with events, it's really interesting if you go into the real-time report. And we'll do that real quickly here. So now we can see all the activity from everywhere. We can see percentage of desktop versus mobile activity, and we can see it laid out by geography worldwide. And then there's ways to narrow this map down if you want to. But one of the more interesting things about real time is that you just pick up, this lets you view a random user snapshot. And I think this is maybe the quickest way to get a handle on what's going on under the hood with GA, is that this lets you just pick out a user and you can see the event streams here. Now, hopefully, we'll see if somebody is actually using it. It batches these events up, so sometimes there's a delay before they essentially start coming along. See if we could just go back here and see if there's any. This is just picking out a random user. In this case, it's someone who is coming in from, I believe this is, what is this, Sweden?
Germany, maybe?
Germany, Schleswig-Holstein.
Yeah.
Using Opera. Oh, right, Germany. It's like literally right there. Okay, nothing much happening at the moment with this user, but the idea is that here and also in the debug view, you can actually see events happening in real time, and that's really kind of a nice thing. Okay, are we not? Okay.
So theoretically, what could we see if?
Well, let's try different. It'll give us a different random user. Let's try this again. So we'll see the.
This would be really important if you were, say, launching a new product or a new campaign on a given day. And you wanted to get a sense of actual user engagement within the context of that launch. This kind of is a melding of tools like Hotjar, which provide visitor playback, although not at such an intrusive level, and then overlays that with all the other data that's available within the context of Google Analytics 4 here. So this is a really exciting feature for folks.
Right, so just to look at this, so here's somebody who came to this page, they viewed the page, they started scrolling. A scroll event is registered when they get to the very bottom. It looks like they pretty much scrolled to the bottom of the page, this user up in Poland, and more or less is just reading or has stopped for the moment. But you can see that I can click down into page view and I can see all of the parameters that are associated. This is actually now an event. This is not a page view as we know it. It's just a type of event that's now called page view, and it gives you information about itself, such as the page location. It gives you the Google Analytics session number and ID. It gives you a page referrer and so forth, and a page title. So again, think of it as this is an entity, and there's all sorts of information about this entity that Google is essentially storing. And the same thing with scroll. It's going to give you similar kind of information. So again, just to give you an idea of how these events are playing out. This is not
one really important thing that I want to touch on here, and most people would just look at this and say, okay, no big deal. But at the bottom of this line in the middle here, we're seeing the initial page view and a scroll action. Then we're also seeing several other timestamps beyond that. This is something new to Google Analytics 4 and this new method of tracking. The old version, Universal Analytics version of tracking, wouldn't count any sort of further non-interaction based like hits,
Mhm.
it would require then sending the next page view or receiving the next page view in order to say how much time a person was on a given page. The way that this is working is it's actually continuing to send back that data and give us that information without the next subsequent page view within the context of this user's journey here, which is amazing.
Wow.
That's going to have major implications on things like bounce rate again, or really engagement metrics. So if you're creating content, which you should be if you aren't already, for a content marketing style like inbound approach, this is going to be huge, just mind-bogglingly huge, to help you get better insights into engagement with your content and blogs and things like that. So you're going to have some really awesome, new, reliable metrics to gauge success of those content marketing efforts with, which is just so exciting.
And if that's not enough, then you've got a whole slew of reports. Oh, I'm jumping ahead here, but you've got reports related to engagement around pages and screens, events, and so forth. So
And
again, lots of new metrics that some of the metrics that we're used to seeing, like bounce rate, are basically have kind of faded away, but they've been replaced by new metrics related to engagement. So
yeah,
we'll get to that.
some of these things. So Andy, if we can just pause on that, can you collapse that engagement piece there? This life cycle section is really huge for me. Um, the old Google Analytics was broken down by, they had like real-time acquisition, behavior, and conversion. This actually rechunks all of that from across those different silos into these new life cycle aligned um, groupings here, which is huge. This is not just a UI change. This is indicative of like a complete realignment. So again, Andy's talking about, rejiggering or readjusting your perspective here. GA4 is really been designed around the idea of the customer life cycle and around getting you the metrics that again help you to gain insight into the things that are driving value for your business or organization. And it lays it out here, top of funnel to bottom of funnel, and then back through on the retention piece, which is really awesome. And again, just really indicative of how completely realigned the Google team has been in from the ground up its approach to GA4.
Yeah, so right here, like this is the meat of it. This is the part of Google. I mean, it's all worth exploring, but this is essentially modeling the funnel for you right there. So, um, and giving you reports for each one of these. So definitely worth looking into them. We won't be clicking through all of these right
Yeah.
now. We could spend hours literally doing that. But then all of the user stuff is still conveniently broken out. You've got demographic reporting here and also tech reporting. So this is where they're including information such as devices or device category. Here you get the demographic details that we're all familiar with, particularly if we have Google ad measurement enabled and Google Signals. So and you see a lot of and then this is sort of an interesting feature. You're seeing a lot more of this type of data representation here, this kind of scatter chart, where you've got two axes, and then it will basically show you, for example, users versus new users. So new users being on the y-axis, users being on the left axis, and you can see that where they intersect basically is where the scatter plot puts so the US users, not surprisingly, are far and away, at least at this point, the biggest users of this. When you intersect these two dimensions, and you can change these up, so you could have different ones. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same. So these reports are really quite flexible. You can add other dimensions to them just like you do in the existing ones and so forth. So you can really drill down, get a lot of great information about your users, where they're coming from, what their demographics are, language, age, gender, interests, and so forth. And
One thing that you'll notice with these reports, Andy, could you pop open just the retention one again there, please?
Sure.
What you're going to notice if you are poking through this, you're going to see a lot of things just don't yet exist or aren't there. Under retention, there's only overview. There's no deep dive reporting here yet. That in some cases is by design, and in other cases, just a byproduct of this still being kind of in its late infancy, early toddler stage. With retention, can you scroll up just a smidge here, Andy? We should be seeing at the top of this report an option, yeah, there we go, for adding a comparison. So if you would click on that, this is where you're going to be able to customize these reports and sort by secondary, tertiary dimensions, introduce segments and things like that. So the way that we're generating these reports is also shifting, and this instance inches us a little bit closer to more of a Google Data Studio style representation of and flexibility with these data visualizations, which also is really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, this seems like, you know, like the user experience is enhanced. It's a more modern day marketing tool that marketers are just going to want to be spending more and more time in here, learning and frankly playing around. I'm excited to spend time here
Yeah.
looking at this. So that's really, really cool.
It's really set up for doing more in-depth data analysis. And I mean, the reporting, you can do a certain amount of it, but I think the assumption is that Google Data Studio is really the tool for reporting and visualization and kind of presentation of data. And this is your lab for kind of really figuring out how to measure what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just on a real technical level, say I want to get this on my site and up and running, what do I need to do as far as setup for GTM or JavaScript or anything like that?
In a nutshell, you just place another snippet on your site in tandem with your universal analytics snippet. What you see here, Andy showing you, is you would just create a new property. Google's going to ask if you want it to be a Google Analytics 4 property. You'd simply select yes. If you're using Google Tag Manager, which hopefully you are, you just copy in your ID, place your tag in Google Tag Manager that's specific to GA4, hit publish, and you're off and running with gathering data. Now, of course, you know, there's always more things that can and should be customized. You want to make sure that you're, you know, you've got your Google Signals turned on. There are some modifications within the property and data settings and data streams that you'll likely want to customize. There's also, as Andy's showing you here, the opportunity to set up the enhanced measurement, which is, again, really, really important. Does a lot of stuff natively here just by simply toggling that switch. No change to code necessary. Where you'll need to still leverage things like Google Tag Manager is on those custom events, which will require a separate set of events and tags to be placed for measurement of custom things like sign-ins or stuff like that.
But all the standard stuff, right? I mean, measuring an outbound click or measuring video engagement or a file download, these are now just automatic events. These are just built in, and
huge time and money saver.
and they also don't count against your budget of how many events you're allowed to track, because they do put an upper limit of 500, which is pretty generous. But it's even more generous when you consider that all these standard events don't really even, you know, there's automatic events and for that matter, the recommended events. None of those are actually counting against that total. So go ahead and we'd recommend just going and toggle these all on. File download. I mean, if you have videos on your site, if you're doing file downloading or have site search implemented, just go ahead and toggle these on, and you know, you'll be really happy to see them. And then where this all shows up is down here in events reporting. We'll see if we just that's demographics. Sorry, this is down here under the events tab. So you just will see the events from from whatever the reporting period is. And again, these things have now standardized names within GA. So things like video, session start, video complete, video progress, first visit, click, page view, and so forth. This possibly was implemented as a separate event, but this one's a standard. Page views a standard. View search results. Usually, when you see an underscore like this, it shows you that it's a standard event. Any one of these could be then toggled on. I can't toggle it because it's not my setup, but you could toggle that on and make it a conversion. So that's one of the ways that you set up conversions, is that you first set up the event and then you mark it as, this is something I want to follow as a conversion, and then that will show up here in your conversion reporting, along with obviously e-commerce conversions, purchases, and so forth. Those are going to then show up here in the monetization reporting.
Nice. Sounds
Andy,
like it. Oh, go
could
ahead.
you jump back a couple of steps? You had just by chance stumbled on the data streams.
Oh yeah, I had that set up.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind is when you do set up your GA4 analytics tracking, don't delete your existing one. That's really important to keep running, just because, again, this is in its infancy. It's new. It's actively being developed. So don't cut your foot off there. Make sure you maintain that other instance as well. Yeah, data streams. This is really important. So you heard us talk about earlier how it's not really treating data between a website, web app, whatever, differently. And this is a great example of just that. Here we have a data stream for our website, but say you're an enterprise or a university that have several different websites and you want to be able to aggregate that together. You would simply set those up as separate streams. Your mobile app is a stream, your primary website's a stream, your intranet is a stream. If you've got an interactive mobile or an interactive touchscreen style kiosk that has analytics that you're gathering on it, that's a stream. All those streams funnel together here to give you a picture, a comprehensive picture of user behavior across all those streams. And it does that with Google Signals. So make sure that you do turn on Google Signals, and that that is enabled across each of your analytics properties in current Universal Analytics, as well as here GA4. This can get a little bit complex, but really this is super awesome and important. And again, just smushing all that data together to give you that more holistic life cycle picture is really, really exciting here.
Right. So here's where you would add more streams, and we're not really trying to get into the mechanics of this. This is really just a quick flyover to show you some of the important features of this. But the key thing is that what we think of right now as Google Analytics UA is not going anywhere. Universal Analytics is here for probably years to come. People will be using it and slowly transitioning onto GA4. GA4 is still pretty much in, as I think it's Tyler, you put it earlier, it's kind of like making its steps from baby to toddler. There's still a lot of work to be done before it's as robust as what we're all used to with Universal Analytics. So when you upgrade, you're not really actually upgrading, you're just adding a GA4 property, and then you just go on to Google Tag Manager and you go to the same container that you're already using for your current website, you just add a new tracking tag, inject it, and you're done. And then you start collecting data and let it go now for a few weeks or a month, and then come back and look at it and see what you're getting. And then it will all start to make sense.
Great. How about user privacy? How does GA4 focus on that?
It's a bit confusing, right? Like, we're talking about increases in data privacy, and we're telling you to add another thing that tracks more stuff.
Yeah.
So let's just take a moment to appreciate the irony in that. But Google Analytics 4 doesn't really rely on cookies like Universal Analytics does. It's leveraging again, like a whole different way of tracking, and again, Google Signals plays a key role in that, and as does machine learning. So again, we're really encouraging clients and friends to get GA4 installed now. Let it gather that really wholesome data on the attribution modeling while that exists, because it's going to rely on that later on down the road as that pool shrinks, and the machine learning algorithms to extrapolate that out. So totally changes the way that we're tracking here, and is really focusing on anonymizing and extrapolating through machine learning a lot of things that otherwise would be considered overly intrusive, like that cross-site, cross-device tracking, that, you know, Facebook's got their stuff everywhere and they can follow you and see you even when you enter a store. Like, you know, that may be a little too much. So this is kind of reeling it back a few steps, anonymizing that, aggregating it, and then using machine learning to fill in the gaps that would otherwise be present with if we just remove those types of data collection altogether.
And all of these large data platforms like Google, Facebook, et cetera, they're all having to deal with the new sets of laws like GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act, the CCPA. So they have to do this. I mean, we have to move towards this world where, yes, you can figure out what people are doing to help marketers do their job better. At the same time, you can't be just tracking people in the intrusive way that it's been done. And people need to know what's being tracked and have more positive and proactive control over that. So this is moving the world towards a model where that can be done.
Yep. Really seems like the future of how data privacy is handled, and hedges your bets against any future laws that might come out. So
Absolutely.
good thing to start now, I would say, but that's kind of our ending note here. Like, should we, is now the time to jump on board or later? That's what's on everyone's now, right? Seems like.
Yep, definitely. But again, don't delete your current implementation of analytics. That's a really big one here. Do it now. There's no loss to you.
Yeah.
Set it up and let it run and start to explore what your data looks like. It won't match up on both sides. Again, there are different data models. So don't get too hung up about, oh, I saw 4-page views here and I only saw 1-page view there. Don't just look at each one of them as its own way of representing what's going on your website or apps or other properties.
Love it.
As Ron Popeil said, set it and forget it.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
just let it run, gather that data, and when it matures a little bit more, loop back and start making some customizations.
Yeah. And meanwhile, go in there and play around and learn a few new things, you know, if at the time or the drive. So exciting stuff. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.